things that Tavares is dealing with in his work, which have to do with questions of how we belong in this world, who gets to feel like they belong, who doesn't, with shining a light on people who are overlooked or neglected. And, a lot of his work from the very beginning has been about exploration and discovery. Sometimes literally, he went to the North Pole, emulating one of his heroes, Matthew Henson, who was an African-American explorer, who probably was the first guy who reached the North Pole, but doesn't get that much credit for it. But he's also really interested in making sure the audience has an experience of exploration also. He takes you on a very imaginative journey with each work, sometimes across different periods of time, different places, lots of different ideas that he asks you to connect in some way that you may never connected before. And a lot of Tavares' work has this impulse to connect with voices of ancestors, try to make an imaginary way of remapping a connection that got lost because of 300 years of slavery. So one of the invisible things that he's talking about is that connection. There's something called the Intergalactic Pavilion, which is a giant thatched structure that was based on a coronation hut he saw at a village in Uganda where the local king would be crowned. And he was very interested in this idea that this is the kind of place where coronation ceremonies began. And he's now included a sound and light installation in there, which is taking voices related to the history of black music, but also civil rights. Key element in a lot of this work is about this sense of belonging. Who gets to feel like they belong and who doesn't? And so out on the sculpture terrace, you have this amazing sculpture of a boat. It's kind of an astonishing sight to see when you come up off the ground and you look out the window and there's a sea with a 14-meter long steamship waiting towards Africa. And that is a boat inspired by Marcus Garvey's Black Star Line shipping company that Garvey started in 1920 in order to create a black-owned shipping line that could connect the U.S., the Caribbean, and Africa. He's also taken hair that he's gathered from barbershops in the Bahamas and sculpted them into these traditional hairstyles, most of which have some kind of symbolic content. And he's playing with the significance of especially hair that belongs to black people and looking at how beautiful it is. And so he's also used the hair to make these monochrome paintings on the walls, which all have different textures and play off the textural quality of this hair. But it's very much part of this desire to connect to this ancestral voices. Every good exhibition lingers in your head long after you leave the gallery and changes the way you find your perspective on the world. And I hope that people do have that experience. But there's also the example of Tavares. He's got this incredible capacity to just do things that most of us think that's not something an average person does. And he's an artist. He trained as a cosmonaut in Russia. He went to the North Pole, went to the Arctic 4 times, and he started in his native Bahamas, the Bahamian Aerospace and Sea Exploration Center. So I think that sense of possibility is something that I hope people take away from it.